It had been 10 months since my fiancée got pregnant with the child of her first love. The woman finally sensed that something was wrong. He asked his sister, "Lately, I've been busy keeping her company while she rests and takes care of the baby. Didn't father cause any trouble?" His sister looked completely confused. Feuding already announced to the public that the engagement was off. She even packed up your things and sent them back. You really didn't know? The woman suddenly froze. Her face turned deathly pale. She didn't know. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, I overheard her conversation with her sister. "Liu Cixi, are you out of your mind? You actually hid it from Feuding and gave his bone marrow to Zhang Yiter." Liu Qingqing rushed into the hospital room, pointed at Liu Cixi, who was sitting on the sofa, and started yelling. Liu Cixi raised her head slightly. Her beautiful, delicate face carried a helpless tone as she frowned. Only Feuding and Yida had matching bone marrow. I had no other choice. Liu Qingqing grabbed the infection report with Feuding's name on it from the table. She glanced at the hospital summary that covered most of the year. Her rage was explosive. No way to name it. You knew perfectly well that Ating's health wasn't good, and yet you told him it was just a stomach issue and had him hospitalized. You let him take that risk. I find this completely unbelievable. Did Zhang Yiter cast some spell on you? Back then, just to make him smile, you raced cars and ended up paralyzed for 5 years. During those 5 years, Feuding stayed by your side. Now that you're healthy again, Zhang Yida fell ill and was tricked into returning to the country. You secretly gave Feuding's bone marrow to Zhang Yiter. More than half a year has passed. Zhang Yida just recovered from his illness, and now you're messing around with him doing IVF. At the doorway of the hospital room, I had just finished the discharge paperwork and heard Liu Qingqing's furious voice. The hand I had on the wall clenched tighter. The smile on my face froze. It felt like I had fallen into an icy abyss. Just half an hour ago, the doctor had told me that my post-op infection was completely healed, and I could be discharged. Right there and then, Liu Cixi proposed to me. I cried with joy. I even posted on social media, saying today was the happiest day of my life. In the hospital room, Cixi had her head lowered, her dark, fine hair covering her ink-black eyes. I couldn't see her expression. "Sis, please help me keep all this quiet. Don't let Feuding find out." Yida's grandmother doesn't have much time left. Her only wish is to hold his child before she dies. I don't want her to have any regrets. Liu Qingqing stared with wide eyes, her pretty, refined face filled with fury. Then show up in court. Who in her circle doesn't know? He's been in love with you for 8 full years. I remember it perfectly. 8 years ago, Zhang Yida confessed to the second Li family daughter and got rejected. You wanted to avenge him out of spite. So you deliberately got close to Feuding and flirted with him. You made the Li family girl who liked Feuding lose her standing. Now you're carrying Zhang Yida's child. Feuding has been with you for 8 years. What do you expect him to do now? Liu Cixi lowered her eyes and looked away. Her voice was hoarse as she said, "I've arranged everything. Even if father never forgives me for the rest of his life, once he knows I'm carrying Yida's child, it'll all be over anyway. I've gotten used to Yida's presence over these 8 years. I'm going to marry him." I didn't listen to anything else after that. A nurse happened to walk toward the hospital room. I lowered my head, pretending I'd just returned. The 2 women in the room looked at each other in shock. Liu Qingqing pulled Liu Cixi away. On the way home, Liu Cixi discussed wedding details with me, but I didn't hear a single word. I stared at the buildings outside the window as they flew past, feeling nothing but a cold chill through my body. I first met Liu Cixi when I was 15, at a gathering with my parents and their business partners. She had the elegance and aloofness of a noble girl, and that image was forever etched into my mind. A glimpse of her beauty left me breathless. I raced under the name Wu Ying, and ended up saving Liu Cixi's life. That was the beginning of my long, secret crush. When I was 20, Li Zhuwei began to pursue me. That same year, Liu Cixi attended a party thrown by one of my friends. That night, she took the initiative to add me on WeChat. I was in a good mood for the entire evening. Later that same year, I found out Liu Cixi had a first love named Zhang Yide. But Zhang Yide cherished freedom above all else. He had dated more than a dozen girlfriends, yet never once did he like Liu Cixi. When I turned 21, Liu Cixi confessed her feelings to me. I agreed to be with her. At 22, Liu Cixi got into a car racing accident and was rushed to the hospital. The next day, it was announced that she would be permanently disabled. That year, the disabled Liu Cixi seemed like a completely different person. Her temper grew gloomy and volatile, out of love for her. I turned down my parents' offer to move abroad with them and chose to stay behind and take care of her. At 27, Liu Cixi gradually recovered. Old Master Liu publicly announced that she would take over the Liu family. The young girl once again became the breeze of spring in my memory. When I was a child, I once fainted at home for no apparent reason. When I woke up, the doctor told me I had a stomach illness and that I needed to be hospitalized for surgery. Thinking back on it now, what I once believed to be a love gifted from heaven had been full of lies from the very beginning. More than half a year ago, I had blood drawn many times at the hospital. Liu Cixi told me it was for testing, but in truth, she had tricked me into donating bone marrow to Zhang Yide. The Bentley slowly drove into the Villa district. It was midnight. Liu Cixi's phone suddenly rang. I glanced at the caller ID. It read Dazi the cutie. Liu Cixi swiftly hung up. Her slender fingers gently brushed the screen. Moments later, she got up and left in a hurry. I walked over to the window. In the endless darkness outside, the Bentley gradually disappeared from view. I dialed my mother's number and said, "Mom, I've made up my mind. I agreed to the marriage with the Su family's Lin Yin. 7 days from now, as soon as I land, I'll meet with him." My mother probably guessed what I had gone through. She offered me a few words of comfort, then patiently helped me analyze the situation. Think carefully, Ating. The Fu family is no longer what it used to be. This marriage alliance is not something to be taken lightly. Though the Su family and the Liu family are worlds apart, they have been enemies for generations, like fire and water. If you marry into the Su family, they may demand that you cut all ties with the Lias, completely and permanently. On the other end of the line, my hand holding the phone slightly trembled. 6 years ago, the Fu family expanded and moved its business abroad, and we settled overseas permanently. But not long after the move, the Fu family encountered a financial crisis. The Su family, also overseas, made several overtures, expressing interest in a marriage alliance with the Fus. But my parents knew I liked Liu Cixi and never once considered sacrificing my marriage for the company. But now, I don't want to have any more contact with Liu Cixi, and marrying into the Su family is the best option. Mom, I've made up my mind. For the rest of my life, I never want to see Liu Cixi again. On the other end of the call, my mother paused in silence for a few seconds. All right then, tomorrow your father and I will visit the Su family to discuss the marriage. I couldn't sleep the entire night. Early the next morning, Liu Cixi still hadn't returned. She only sent one message, feuding. "There's an issue at the company. I'll be on a business trip for 3 days." I didn't reply to her. Instead, I booked a flight to go abroad in 7 days and began packing my things. I had been living with Liu Cixi these past few years, so I had a lot of belongings. With the Fu family's situation worsening, I listed everything of value for sale online. By evening, a message popped up from a stranger on a social app. It read, "Han feuding." I opened the profile and saw a newly issued pregnancy report. The username was Dazi in Bliss. It was a private account newly created by Zhang Yide. Since Liu Cixi's pregnancy had to be kept secret, he didn't dare make it public, and I was the only friend he added. A minute later, Zhang Yide shared his latest TikTok video with me. It was a photo of him accompanying Liu Cixi during a prenatal checkup, and added a caption, "Gentle and considerate. The third ultra-wealthy expectant mother." I saw right through his little scheme. After liking the post, I left a comment. "So now that your bone marrow illness is cured, you're back to provoke me again. Zhang Yiter, did those steamed buns taste good with your anemia?" The next day, I went to say goodbye to my closest friends one by one. On the way, I delivered my luxury items to the buyers who had already shown interest. On my way home, I received Zhang Yiter's second TikTok post. Still just a few pictures. This time, it was of him helping Liu Cixi pick out maternity clothes, pinks and whites. Every single outfit looked stunning. I replied under his last video. Zhang Yiter responded to my comment with a tone that was nothing short of arrogant. It wasn't like I begged you to donate to me. It was Sister Cixi who got worried and forced me to accept it. I sneered and replied with a single comma. On the third day, I sold all the gifts I had given Liu Cixi over the years. Those dozen shirts, shoes and watches were all gone. In the afternoon, Liu Cixi returned. She noticed the bedroom looked a little emptier, and there was a mysterious black suitcase that hadn't been there before. With her thick brows furrowed, she asked, "Why does the house feel so empty? The shirts you gave me are missing. Everything was perfectly fine. Why did you suddenly buy a suitcase?" I lowered my eyes slightly and casually made up an excuse. Those shirts were outdated, so I threw them out. Then again, maybe it was already too late. Liu Cixi probably thought I was mad at her for being gone the past 3 days. She pulled out a document she'd long prepared. A limited edition Lamborghini supercar purchase contract. "Work's been hectic these days, so I bought you a supercar. I'll go with you to pick it up soon." I glanced at the purchase contract in her hand. Unlike other men, I didn't care much for watches. Only sports cars ever captured my heart. This particular Lamborghini was one I'd recently had my eye on. Liu Cixi had it custom painted in black and pink, my favorite color combination. Even the seats were tailored with my favorite cartoon character Doraemon. Over these 8 years, Liu Cixi had memorized all of my preferences down to the smallest detail. If I hadn't overheard her conversation with Liu chinking outside the hospital room, I probably would have been deeply touched by now. But that moment had shattered everything. I quietly set the car contract aside. Liu Cixi, slightly sulking, leaned close. She pinched my pale cheek. "Still mad, huh? There's a party tonight. Come with me and clear your head a bit." I was just about to refuse, but Liu Cixi had already taken my hand and led me downstairs. The Bentley hadn't gone far when Liu Cixi's phone rang again. It was that same cute nickname, Yi Dazi. I couldn't hear the whole conversation clearly, but I caught one urgent line. "Cixi, help me." Liu Cixi's face tightened immediately. She tapped her screen and somehow pulled up Zhang Yiter's real-time location, then quickly spun the car around. "Forget the party for now. Zhang Yiter has been kidnapped. We have to go save him." Liu Cixi drove like a maniac, running over a dozen red lights without hesitation. 20 minutes later, Liu Cixi locked eyes on a black sedan ahead where Zhang Yiter was being held. She narrowed her eyes and slammed the gas pedal. With a loud crash, the back of the black car crumpled in an instant. At that same moment, the Bentley's passenger side was rammed hard by one of the kidnappers, a partner of Zhang Yiter's captors. I couldn't dodge it in time, and my head was immediately split open from the impact. Bright red blood trickled from my scalp down my pale cheek. My skull throbbed with a heaviness I couldn't fight off. It felt like 1,000 needles stabbed into my brain. The pain left me speechless for a long time, even after such a brutal collision in the passenger seat. Liu Cixi didn't spare me a single glance. Her eyes were locked solely on Zhang Yiter in the black sedan. After crashing into them 3 more times, the black car was finally forced to a stop. The people inside quickly escaped into an accomplice's car. Liu Cixi flung open the car door and carried Zhang Yide out from the back seat. For the first time, her sharp eyes revealed a flicker of panic. She asked if I was scared out of my mind. She asked if I was hurt anywhere. Zhang Yide lay in Liu Cixi's arms. He turned his head slightly, revealing a blushing face. He cried like a weeping pear blossom, delicate and full of sorrow. He said it was father's enemy in business. They only slapped me once, nothing serious. He tried to downplay it as no big deal. His pitiful state made Liu Cixi's heart twist in pain. She scolded him, saying how could that possibly be called no big deal? All these years, even while you were overseas, I've still spoiled and pampered you like before. You've never experienced anything like this. She blamed herself for arriving too late. He whimpered that he was so afraid. She gently said not to be afraid, admitting it was her fault. She insisted on taking him for a full-body checkup right away. Liu Cixi supported Zhang Yide and helped him into the back seat of the Bentley. She reached the hospital in just 5 minutes. After getting out, she carried Zhang Yide straight to the emergency room. The entire time, she never once noticed me in the passenger seat with bloodshot eyes. Blood was still trickling steadily from my head. I watched the two of them disappear from sight. I tilted my head back, refusing to let the tears fall. Fighting through the pain, I pushed the car door open and staggered toward the hospital entrance. In the evening, heavy rain began to pour. I didn't bother to shield myself with my hand, letting the rain soak my wounds without resistance. A nurse at the triage desk screamed in shock when she saw me. She immediately began treating my injuries, then led me to get examined. An hour later, my weakened body finally finished all the tests. And for the first time, I picked up my phone. The screen showed over a dozen missed calls. All of them were from Liu Cixi. I didn't hesitate for even a second. I powered off my phone without another thought, knowing I'd be hooked up to Ives late into the night. I simply asked the nurse to arrange a room for me, somewhere between waking and dreaming. My thoughts wandered back to the past. Ever since Liu Cixi became disabled, I had attended all her business dinners and events on her behalf. I took her place at countless social engagements. There was once a banquet where two CEOs started arguing. They flipped the entire table in a fit of rage. Every dish shattered on the floor in an instant. A shard of porcelain bounced up and sliced into my wrist. The moment Liu Cixi found out, she rushed to the scene and immediately had her assistant cut all business ties with both companies. Without any hesitation, she frantically took me to the hospital to have my wounds cleaned. Back then, I thought she was making a fuss over nothing. But she comforted me with a gentle smile and said, "You're the most important man in my life. I don't want to see a single wound on you. A man should be flawless from head to toe. Only then do clothes and jewelry look their best on you." But now, with blood all over my face, she ignored me completely, all for another man. She once swore I'd never have a scar on my body. Yet she had no problem letting me risk my life to donate bone marrow for someone else. Even marriage and children. She kept those secrets hidden, having them with someone else in silence. Before falling asleep, I saw a new TikTok from Udazi. He looked so blissful as he shared the latest post. It showed Liu Cixi kneeling beside him to wash his feet, coaxing him to sleep. She even knelt on one knee just to please him. I watched the video over and over again, and each time, the unease in my chest grew stronger. I couldn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, still feeling unwelcome at home, I had just stepped into the villa when Uncle Chen, the butler, greeted me with a grave expression. He said Mr. Zhang is waiting for you in the parlor, and he's not in the best of moods. I walked toward the parlor. From a distance, I could see Liu Cixi comforting Zhang Yide. He was sniffling softly as he smoked. His tears made him look all the more pitiful. When Liu Cixi saw I had finally returned, she could no longer suppress the fury on her face. A cold air seemed to radiate from her entire being. She accused me of deliberately leaking Zhang Yide's location to his father's enemies. I froze in my tracks. I looked toward Zhang Yide sitting on the sofa. He tilted his head smugly and leaned against Liu Cixi, wearing a triumphant smile fit for early spring. In that instant, everything became clear to me. I rubbed the space between my brows in frustration. I don't even know who his father's enemies are. So how could I have leaked his whereabouts to them? Liu Cici's face darkened. She pulled out a stack of photos and threw them in front of me. Then how do you explain these pictures of you meeting with Zhang's enemies? Tell me how you explain this. I glanced at the photos on the table out of the corner of my eye. My expression grew faintly cold. They were taken a few days ago when I was selling second-hand luxury goods. Photos of me meeting the beer at a cafe. No wonder that man was so agreeable. He didn't even try to haggle with me, only requested to meet at the cafe in person. Seeing I didn't speak, Liu Cici assumed I was admitting guilt. Her delicate face darkened with terrifying intensity. She asked if I remembered what she once told me. No matter what the world says outside, all those rumors about her and Yeater. She swore nothing had ever happened between them, not even the slightest connection. She insisted he was truly a kind person, and that in the 8 years she had been with me, she had treated me well, hadn't she? She said I should know that better than anyone. She reminded me that just days ago, she had even proposed to me, yet I still chose to hurt him and make things difficult for him. And she asked if that was fair. As I listened to her words, it felt like needles were stabbing through my heart. In the 8 years I had been with Liu Cici, there was a full year where she pretended to pursue me just to help Zhang Yeater. 5 of those years, she was disabled, and I had taken care of her. In those 5 years of her disability, she was gloomy. She broke down and cried bitterly through the night. All of it was because she risked her life in illegal racing to fulfill Zhang Yeater's vanity. And because of that recklessness, all the pain she suffered born from Zhang Yeater, she had now completely forgotten. During those 5 years, I secretly enrolled her in physical therapy classes to help her recover faster. Every day, I massaged her legs. I never missed a single session. When she was depressed, I'd stay up late seeking advice from the best rehabilitation experts, just to learn how to comfort someone with a disability. All that I gave, she hadn't remembered any of it. It was truly ironic. I really wanted to ask her if Zhang Yeater was only a younger brother to her. Then why was she doing everything a lover would do for him? Yes, over the past 8 years, she had treated me in one way, and him in quite another. But I didn't want to argue with her anymore. I pointed to the bandage on my head and let out a bitter laugh. He was kidnapped yesterday, and I suffered a head injury too. It took 5 stitches. Would I be stupid enough to hurt him if it meant ending up this wounded myself? Even after pointing out I was injured too, Liu Cici remained unmoved. Her heart was fully consumed with concern for Zhang Yeater, and she still refused to trust me. Looking at the tight line of her jaw, I felt deeply relieved that I would be leaving in 3 days. Since she was so convinced I had done it, I asked her to tell me how she wanted to resolve this. She claimed that she didn't trust me. It's just that she had known Yeater for 16 years and 7 months, and he had never lied to her. Liu Cici paused, her expression twisting with anger, then said she would settle the matter right now. But first, since I made Yeater cry, it was my responsibility to comfort him. Just then, Zhang Yeater, who had been sulking the whole time, suddenly tossed the ring in his hand into the pool. He cried out in alarm. Cici, the ring you gave me just fell into the pool. He looked at me as he spoke. His thin lips curled into a smug smile, as if daring me. He said, fine, let's settle it like this. Don't bother comforting me anymore. Just pick up that ring, and I'll forgive you for everything you've done to hurt me. Winter had just begun, and the pool water was icy cold. The wound on my head hadn't even healed yet. I looked down at Liu Cici, who sat there in silence, her beautiful face lowered, so I couldn't see her eyes. Her slender fingers tapped rhythmically on the armrest. Her cold head never once lifted. She didn't spare me a single glance. In that moment, I felt as if something had gripped my heart in a vice. It hurt so much I wanted to cry out. Then suddenly a memory struck me. 6 months after Liu Cici was diagnosed with her disability, Her grandfather came to visit her at the hospital. When he learned that her chances of recovery were slim, he began searching for another heir. That very night, Liu Cixi disappeared from her hospital room. When I finally found her, she was pushing her wheelchair. He walked into the raging sea with no hesitation, letting the icy seawater rise all the way to his chest. Terrified, I rushed to stop him, but he shoved me away without mercy. Don't pretend to care about me anymore. You're just my boyfriend, not my husband. If you really want to prove you care, then look at the wind and the waves now. Swim a full lap, and I'll do whatever you say from now on. I stared at him in stunned silence. I honestly wanted to tell him. I wasn't pretending at all. I truly wanted to be his husband. So even though I couldn't swim, I didn't hesitate for a second. I turned and plunged into the sea. The waves were rough and the wind howled. I was quickly dragged under by the current, and I lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, the first thing I saw was a pair of worried dark eyes. She looked pale, her jaw clenched tight with tension. Why didn't you tell me you couldn't swim? Are you insane? How could you jump into the ocean without knowing how to swim? I looked up at her, my voice hoarse and raspy. Liu Cixi, even if your legs never recover, I still want to marry you. I truly love you more than you can imagine. Since that day, Liu Cixi never brought me to the sea again. Even the pool at home was kept dry. I used to think she just didn't want water in the pool, that her gentle nature had finally compromised, and ordered the maids to clean and refill it daily, so I thought. I gave a faint tug at the corner of my lips. My expression stayed calm. You want me to retrieve the ring, don't you? Fine, I'll get it. Without even taking off my jacket, I turned and jumped into the pool. The freezing water soaked into my skin, sending violent shivers through my body. I began to sink slowly, overwhelmed by an all-consuming fear. Yet I clenched my teeth and refused to call for help. Soon after, a cloud of red bloomed in the water. The butler nearby cried out in panic, "My God, sir, your head is bleeding." Liu Cixi tore off her coat and dove into the pool to pull me out. She screamed at me enough. Why must you be so cruel? Couldn't you have just walked away earlier? I lifted my head and stared at the diamond ring at the bottom of the pool, and with a coldness in my voice, I said, "Didn't you want me to make her smile? Well, look at me now." Li Baiyu must be very pleased with this outcome. Liu Cixi furrowed her brows in frustration. Her once beautiful and refined face, now clouded in stormy anger. How many times have I told you? I really only see Yida as a younger brother. The Zhang family's business in the forestry trade isn't bad either. If word got out about what you're doing, what then? Public opinion is brutal these days. I told you to comfort him, so he wouldn't spiral into despair. Everything I've done is for your sake. Liu Cixi said it with such deep affection, as if it had all been out of love for me. But as I listened, all I could do was laugh bitterly through the pain. She talked about public opinion. But back then, when the heir of the Liu family was crippled from street racing because of Zhang Yidu, didn't they just cover it all up anyway? Zhang Yidu did whatever he wanted. He bullied the weak at school and acted like a tyrant, but he always lived smoothly under the shade of their family tree, even their surrogacy through IVF. He managed to keep that hidden from the public. But now, even if I really were behind the kidnapping, she had the nerve to lecture me about public opinion. The truth was obvious. In Liu Cixi's heart, I would never compare to Zhang Yidu. I didn't want to speak to Liu Cixi anymore. I peeled off my soaked black coat and walked alone toward the living room. With each step I took, the blood loss from my head made me dizzy. And suddenly, I collapsed. Liu Cixi's expression changed dramatically. She rushed toward me in a panic. Just as she was about to catch me in her arms, Zhang Yidu suddenly crouched on the ground, weeping like a child in the rain. "Cixi, my stomach hurts so bad. Help me upstairs to lie down." Liu Cixi froze in her steps. She had just reached out to lift me. but turned and scooped up Zhang Yida instead, letting my head slam heavily into the floor. She looked at the butler nearby and left behind only one cold sentence. Uncle Chen, take Mr. Song to the hospital. When I woke up again, the first thing I saw was a pair of worried dark eyes looking at me. Liu Cixi called out my name to wake me up, then hurried off to get the doctor. Only after confirming I was alright did she finally breathe a sigh of relief. Sharp-eyed, I noticed there was now a Buddhist prayer bead bracelet on my left wrist. It looked just like the one Liu Cixi always wore. Her assistant smiled and said, "Sir, you hadn't woken up for so long. President Liu was so worried she gave you the beads she's worn for over 10 years. She passed them on to you. Last night, she even swore before the Buddha that if you came back safe, she would become vegetarian for life and give up smoking, drinking, and partying." I frowned and removed the beads from my wrist in mild distaste, then handed them back to Liu Cixi. "You don't have to change your habits for me." Liu Cixi didn't take them. Instead, she put the beads back on my wrist, her voice warm and gentle. "Back when I was disabled, didn't you make similar vows for me?" My heart trembled just a little at her words. It was in the second year of Liu Cixi's injury. I'd heard Lingquan Temple was especially blessed in the early mornings, so I took her there overnight to make a wish. That day before the Buddha, I vowed to give up everything I had in exchange for Liu Cixi's health, and she too made a vow before the Buddha that she would marry me and be my bride 5 years later. I remember staring at the handwritten wish she'd tied to the prayer tree, eyes red as she held me and tried to comfort me for a long time. It was one of those rare moments when her eyes held only me. But in truth, it was only when Zhang Yida was not around that Liu Cixi's eyes had space for me. Now that Zhang Yida was back in the country, Liu Cixi's gaze would never settle on me again. I looked at her beautiful face, quietly asking for praise. Her soft features lowered ever so slightly, as if she were struggling inside. When I woke up again, it was already the afternoon. I got up intending to ask the doctor when I could be discharged. But before I could open the door, I overheard Liu Cixi and Liu Qingqing talking in the hallway, their voices drifting in clearly. "When are you planning to set the wedding date with feuding?" Liu Qingqing's voice sounded puzzled. Liu Cixi hesitated for a second, then replied calmly, "I already mentioned it to him last time. I plan to hold the wedding at the end of the month." Liu Qingqing nodded and reminded her the wedding must be grand. The dowry can only be generous, never lacking. Feuding already donated bone marrow to your childhood sweetheart. We absolutely cannot skimp on his dowry. Then, as if remembering something, Liu Qingqing's tone shifted. "What a coincidence. Now that I think about it, you're getting married this month. And I heard someone from the Su family is also getting married soon. The groom is also named Feuding." Hearing this, I rushed to push open the door, cleared my throat twice, and the two women immediately stopped talking. That night, the doctor announced I could be discharged. After returning home, I received a friend request. The name displayed was just 3 characters: Su Wanru. I blinked in surprise, thinking it might be the woman I was supposed to marry. So I accepted the request. The moment I did, she sent me a dowry list. It was a booklet, covered in dense writing, listing every item in the dowry. I skimmed through it roughly, and felt like I couldn't even count them all. Then Suwanru sent more messages. "This is the dowry list. Let me know if you're satisfied with it." Fui told me, "You're flying out the day after tomorrow and arriving at the airport the morning after that. He and I will come pick you up." I paused for a few seconds before replying, "The dowry is enough. Thank you." She didn't reply again. That entire night, Liu Cixi kept trying to make small talk with me, but my heart felt more and more distant. Liu Cixi probably thought I was still upset about what had happened earlier. To cheer me up, she had her assistant plan a bachelor party for me the next day. By the next morning, everyone in our circle knew it was Liu Cixi's pre-wedding bachelor night. That night, quite a crowd showed up. And the moment I arrived at the venue, Liu Cixi wrapped her arms around my waist. He pulled out two car purchase contracts. He handed one of them to me first. His gaze was deep and unreadable. That supercar from last time. I always felt I didn't deserve you these past 2 days. So I ordered you a new supercar. He paused for a moment, then took the original Lamborghini purchase contract and handed it to the well-dressed, pathetically pitiful Zhang Yide standing beside him. He gently said, "Yide, this car was originally meant for your brother. But now that he has a new one, we'll just give this one to you. Though it might feel a bit unfair to you." Zhang Yide took the contract with uncontrollable joy. The smile on his lips was barely concealed. "It's all right. Today is all about my brother." Though he said that, anyone with eyes could see clearly that the Lamborghini given to Zhang Yide by Liu Cixi was not just any supercar. It was a nationwide limited edition, while the one newly bought for me this time was just an ordinary, slightly more expensive sports car. Guests nearby couldn't help whispering, "Is the groom Cixi is marrying really feuding? This is clearly feuding's pre-wedding bachelor party. Why is Zhang Yide getting gifts?" They always come up with excuses. Isn't it just a give that nationwide limited edition supercar to Zhang Yide? Who doesn't know that father treasures his cars like his life? Zhang Yide pulling this stunt is downright disgusting. I heard Zhang Yide is an amazing racer. According to inside sources, he's actually the famous racer Wu Ying. Cixi liked him from the start because Wu Ying saved her life on the racetrack. I sat quietly in the corner, listening silently to all the gossip. Wasn't that Wu Ying actually me? I hadn't even had time to appreciate the moment when many around had finished analyzing the situation and walked up to Zhang Yide with their wine glasses. One wave of flattery after another. "Yide, you're so lucky. Cixi treats you so well. Just gifting you such an expensive supercar, it's nothing. This white shirt you're wearing looks amazing. Makes you look like a real prince. I heard you're incredible at racing. You're such a sweet and charming guy. A perfect match for Cixi." More and more people gathered to praise Zhang Yide. Everyone had completely forgotten that today was supposed to be about me. Until about an hour later, when the mood began to liven up. People started singing, and others played games. Zhang Yide stayed seated right beside Liu Cixi. His gaze never strayed from her. When Liu Cixi craved crab, Zhang Yide patiently lowered his voice deliberately and said gently, "You're pregnant, you can't eat that. Wait until you've had the baby. I'll buy you more then." Zhang Yide was clearly trying to play the devoted lover. Liu Cixi let out a soft sigh, then pulled out a black unlimited credit card from her wallet. She handed him that black card, which instantly caused quite a stir. Could it be? People always say the present can't beat the first love. Turns out it's all true. Amid the noise and laughter, I quietly sat in the corner, looking down and playing with my phone, as if none of the festivities around me had anything to do with me. Zhang Yide glanced around the room, and his eyes landed on me, still sitting in the corner. He walked over with a smug look, looking absolutely full of himself. "Today is your and Cixi's pre-wedding bachelor party, but I stole the spotlight. Everyone's fawning over me, flattering me. You must be feeling pretty upset, huh? But no matter how upset you are, you'll just have to grit your teeth and bear it. Because even if you were the one who stood by Cixi during her hardest 5 years, so what? As long as I appear before her, the one she loves the most will always be me." I knew Zhang Yide was trying to provoke me, but my tears had already run dry the day I was discharged from the hospital. Zhang Yide saw I didn't respond, and his eyes turned cold and distant. His gaze fell on the jade bracelet around my wrist, staring intently at the delicate piece. A flicker of jealousy passed through his eyes. Suddenly, he snatched it from my hand. "Are you insane? What do you think you're doing?" I raised my hand to take it back, but Zhang Yide quietly used force, gripping the jade bracelet in his hand. Another flash of envy shone in his eyes. I heard. This was a gift from Madame Liu to you as her future son-in-law. I looked at him with clear eyes. Just as I was about to speak, Zhang Yide suddenly stuffed the bracelet into his mouth, forcefully pulling at the corners of his mouth, tearing a bloody gash. Bright red blood dripped down from his lips. He collapsed weakly to the floor. The jade bracelet tumbled to the ground. He looked up, crying, "Brother, I just thought the bracelet Liu Yi gave you was pretty. Why did you suddenly shove it in my mouth? It hurts so much." Before I could react, a shadow in black appeared and shoved me violently aside. I couldn't keep my balance and fell hard to the floor, crashing right into the table holding the enormous celebration cake. The wound on my head split open again, and blood seeped out. The cake slipped off and landed on me, sticky and cloying. The pain brought tears to the corners of my eyes. I looked up at Liu Cixi rushing toward us, but she didn't spare me a single glance. She picked up a handkerchief with concern and gently wiped the blood from Zhang Yide's lips. Her eyes shimmered with tender worrying. I finally understood the role Zhang Yide was playing. I wiped the sticky cream from my face, picked the jade bracelet up from the floor, and held it out to Zhang Yide. Just when Liu Cixi thought I was trying to start something with Zhang Yide and was about to explode, I grabbed Zhang Yide's wrist and put the jade bracelet on his hand. "And Liu gave this to me, but you seem to really like it, so now it's yours." Zhang Yide looked up in shock, forgetting to act pitiful. Liu Cixi frowned. She couldn't understand what I was trying to do. "That's a birthday gift from my mother to you. Only the Liu family's son-in-law can wear it." I stood up and said coldly, "He's already touched it. It's dirty, I don't want it anymore." With that, I turned around, not caring about the expressions on their faces. I limped out of the room. Behind me, Liu Cixi stared at my cold, retreating figure. Her beautiful face looked slightly chilled in the late night air. Liu Cixi finally came back. She got ready and slipped under the covers. Looking at my back turned toward her, she sighed softly. "Don't be angry, and stop always picking on Yide. He really respects and likes you as his older brother. Yide said he wants to get along with you, so he'll be staying with us for the next few days. Please don't bully him again." I closed my eyes and didn't respond. My tone was calm and indifferent. "Just if Zhang Yide isn't Wu Ying, would you still treat him this well?" Liu Cixi gently stroked my head. Her voice was hoarse. "He's my younger brother. I treat him well because he's Zhang Yide. It has nothing to do with whether he's Wu Ying or not." I knocked lightly on my chest and answered faintly, "Anyway, there's only one day left. I just need to stay here one more day." The next morning, I had just woken up when I heard sweet laughter coming from upstairs. I got up and walked out. From afar, I saw the second-floor lobby. Liu Cixi was teaching Zhang Yide how to arrange flowers. The two stood very close. Liu Cixi was gently explaining to Zhang Yide how to trim different types of flowers. Watching the warmth between them, I felt a little dazed. Back when Liu Cixi was injured, I worried she'd be bored. So I started inviting her to arrange flowers. She had a great temperament for it. I only needed to teach her once and she learned it perfectly. Later, she even had her assistant prepare the flowers. And the first thing she did every morning was place a fresh bouquet by my bedside. But ever since Zhang Yide came back to the country, she seemed to have stopped doing that altogether. My lash lowered slightly. I hid the loneliness in my eyes. I walked downstairs alone, planning to get some breakfast. But after just a few steps, a heavy vase came crashing down on me. With a loud thud, my skull split open instantly from the impact. Warm blood streamed down from my head. The pain was so sharp it sent me sprawling on the floor. In a daze, I saw Zhang Yide casually walking down from the second floor, smiling brightly. "Oh no, brother. I just wanted to show you the flower arrangement I made." But my hand slipped and it accidentally hit your head. What should I do? You're bleeding so much it looks terrifying. How about I call an ambulance for you? But I'm so scared I can't even pick up my phone. You won't blame me, right? Brother, just hold on a bit longer. Before I could hear the rest, the pain knocked me out cold. Later, a housekeeper found me, panicked at the sight, and rushed me to the hospital. When I woke up, it was already noon. My head had been stitched with 30 full stitches. Seeing the grotesque sight, the doctor said I was lucky that a concussion had caused temporary blindness in my right eye. Liu Cixi stood beside the hospital bed, leaning in to gently ask if I was in pain. He helped me sit up with concern and brought me water. His actions still showed care for me, but every word out of his mouth leaned toward defending Zhang Yide. Yide knows he was wrong. He feels really guilty about it. He almost fainted just now from shame. How embarrassing! When we brought you to the hospital, a gossip-hungry reporter snapped photos. Now everyone's waiting for you to explain. So when the media asks, just say, you tripped and hit your head by accident. That way the Zhang family will see your kindness. Zhang Yide is Wu Ying. He once saved my life. I turned away and pulled the blanket over my head. I didn't know if the pain was from my body or my heart. Curled beneath the blanket, my eyes turned red. I remembered how I used to be sick all the time. There was a period when I kept running a low fever. Liu Cixi hired 3 private doctors to watch over me around the clock. Whenever I had a stomachache, he would spend the whole day comforting me. He never let me leave the bed during that time. But the person before me now was no longer the same. Liu Cixi stood at the edge of my hospital bed while I sniffled softly. His heart seemed to ache as he moved to comfort me. But a nurse rushed in suddenly. Mr. Liu, the young man who came with you this morning, suddenly fainted from crying. Do you want to go check on him? The moment he heard Zhang Yide had passed out crying, Liu Cixi forgot all about me and turned toward the hallway. The hospital room quickly fell silent again, leaving only me. 10 minutes later, my phone vibrated. A message came in from Yide's Happiness Moments post. So what if you had 30 stitches in your head? So what if you went blind in your right eye? I didn't even have to cry, and he still rushed over to support me right away. I disappeared for years, came back saying I wanted a child, and he agreed just like that. Tell me, how could he not love me? Not long after, Zhang Yide sent me a video. It showed Liu Cixi soothing a teary Zhang Yide. His eyes were red with worrying as he gently comforted him. Don't blame yourself. I told you I'd always protect you. Feuding just hit his head. It's nothing serious. He won't tell anyone you were the one who did it. Just focus on getting better now. Don't worry about these little things. After watching the video, my fingers dug hard into my palm. I forced myself to sit up and left the hospital alone. There were 6 hours left before I could leave for good. I went to Lingshuan Temple and cut down the wish ribbon I had tied with my own hands. The one Liu Cixi wrote when he was the groom. The cold temple wind bit at my skin. The ribbon blew into my hand. I picked it up and glanced at it. The first wish read, marry Feuding and make her my bride 5 years from now. The second wish said, as long as you come back. No matter when, I would always choose you. I looked at the wishing ribbon, let out a cold laugh and said congratulations. Liu Cixi, you got exactly what you wished for. Soon after, I returned to the villa. My phone kept vibrating without pause. It was another provoking message from Zhang Yide. I only glanced at it once, then sat down at my desk and slowly wrote a farewell letter. Along with it, I placed a photo of Wu Yin. After that, I picked up my suitcase and headed downstairs. I took the proposal from the hospital and placed the engagement ring inside a gray velvet box, then handed it to the butler. When Liu Cixi returns, please give this to him for me. And tell him as well. There's a letter for him on the desk upstairs. The butler had seen me removing the engagement ring. He must have sensed something and said in shock, "Sir, thank you, Uncle Chen, for taking care of me all these years. If fate allows, we'll meet again." I waved him off. Dragging my suitcase, I took a cab to the airport. An hour later, at the airport entrance, my brother Chenzi hugged me tightly, reluctant to let go. "Ting, if you're leaving, don't come back. Live well abroad. And never speak to that scumbag Liu Cixi again." My eyes turned red as I embraced Chenzi. I looked at the city in the early morning hours, lifted my chin slightly. "Goodbye, dawn. Farewell forever, Liu Cixi." The next day, all day long, Liu Cixi stayed in Zhang Yida's hospital room, coaxing him to do tests, convincing him to take medicine. Even though my ward was just one floor below, he never came to see me once. That evening, Zhang Yida threw a tantrum wanting to be discharged. Liu Cixi brought him back to the villa and patiently soothed him to sleep. When the butler saw him finally come downstairs, he handed over the gray velvet box. "Sir came home yesterday and asked me to give this to you." Liu Cixi took the box. His expression darkened. "He's discharged. Wasn't he supposed to stay in the hospital and recover? Why would he come home? Could it be he's acting up again? Didn't I already explain to him? There's nothing between me and Yeater. I've always seen him as a younger brother." When the gray velvet box was opened, the engagement ring lay there unmistakably. He froze for a moment. The butler quietly reminded from the side, "Sir also said there's a letter for you, left upstairs on the desk in the study." Liu Cixi tugged at his tie, a strange anxiety rising in his chest. He turned and went upstairs toward the study. Sure enough, there was a letter on the desk. When the words "farewell letter" met Liu Cixi's eyes, a terrible premonition hit him. He read it word for word, without missing a line. His mind exploded with a loud bang. An unprecedented panic surged in his heart. It's over! That day when Liu Qingqing spoke to him in the hospital, I had heard every word. The twisted lies were completely exposed. Panicked, Liu Cixi scrambled to call me. But out of the corner of his eye, he caught sight of a photo on the desk. In it, a young man wore a red racing suit, sitting casually inside a race car. He had taken off his mask and was making a smoking gesture with his right hand. So I was the one who saved him on the racetrack, and he had always wanted to repay me. There was no other reason. With trembling hands, Liu Cixi dialed my number, but only a cold voice came through the receiver. "The number you dialed has been deactivated." Refusing to give up, Liu Cixi sent me a message on WeChat, but my WeChat account also showed as deactivated. He tried everything to reach me, but it all ended in vain. With no other choice, Liu Cixi called my brother Chen Zi's number. After being rejected 3 times, the call finally connected. On the other end, Chen Zi was sitting in the living room watching TV, being disturbed again and again. He sounded extremely irritated. "Oh well, big CEO. What can I do for you?" Liu Cixi ignored his sarcasm and asked directly, feuding, "Was he Wu Yin? Was it really him?" Chen Zi let out a cold laugh, then said mockingly, "Liu Cixi, don't tell me you only just found out that feuding is actually Wu Yin." Liu Cixi frowned and said he never told me any of this. Chen Zi seemed to calm slightly. "These past few years, you've had all your attention on Zhang Yida. When have you ever truly cared about feuding?" Liu Cixi stared at the call screen that had gone dark. His mind was in complete chaos. 12 years ago, Zhang Yida had come to him on his own and confessed, claiming that he was the Wu Yin he had been searching for. When Zhang Yida described that exact detail from the racetrack that day, and because they had known each other since childhood, he naturally believed it. But from the moment I met Liu Cixi, even though he knew I was passionate about cars, he never paid attention to the fact that I raced professionally. Thinking back carefully, He had been disabled for 5 years, and on the day the doctor finally declared his legs healed, he slowly stood up, then wrapped his arms around me and said one thing: "Thank you for saving my life. If I hadn't been there to care for him all those years, he might never have made it to that day." Back then, I simply smiled at his feet and said, "This makes 2 times I've saved your life." He even wanted to argue with me, but Jong Yida's call came in and interrupted his train of thought. Realizing he had been deceived for 12 long years, he burst into tears before the mirror, then stormed into the guest room next door and shook the sleeping Jong Yida awake. Jong Yida blinked up at him, bleary-eyed and confused, but Liu Cixi slammed Wu Yin's photo in Jong Yida's face, then gripped his delicate neck tightly and shouted, "Jong Yida, how dare you lie to me?" 1 second Jong Yida had still looked calm and relaxed, but when he saw the furious Liu Cixi before him, he seemed to realize something. In a panic, he grabbed the scattered photos on the bed, and the moment he saw them, a deep, unmistakable guilt filled his eyes. He didn't even bother to hide it. A piece of garbage like feuding. How could he possibly be the legendary Wu Yin? Back then, Wu Yin was only 16, yet already one of the top racers in all of Lincoln, practically a god among men in the racing world. Liu Cixi leaned in close to Jong Yida, her dark eyes blazing with fury. "I've confirmed it. Feuding is Wu Yin, and Wu Yin is feuding. Jong Yida, you really fooled me so cruelly." That year on the racetrack, Wu Yin lost the race because his car was shot and caught fire due to an enemy's sabotage. Even though he was about to win first place, he gave up the $1 million prize and turned back, risking everything to save you. After pulling you out of the flames, he arrogantly pointed from the stage and said, "I saved your life. You'd better remember to repay me." Those words about repaying the favor stayed with you for 12 whole years. But who would have thought you remembered the wrong person all along? Liu Cixi's face turned completely cold. He shoved the pathetic Jong Yida aside and snapped icily, "Jong Yida, move back to the Jong family right now." Ignoring Jong Yida's pleading, he ordered the butler to throw him out. Then, wearing a stormy expression, he called his assistant. His voice was icy. "Investigate the so-called kidnapping of Jong Yida, and also look into that party from that day." Meanwhile, at the airport, the plane touched down. I took out a cap and pulled it over my head. My medical bandage still wrapped tightly around the top of my head. Father and mother had already been waiting at the exit. Standing beside them was a woman I didn't recognize. She wore a sleek gray suit and had a stunning, elegant face. It had been a long time since my parents had seen me, and their kind faces were filled with unconcealed joy. "Come, Ting, let us introduce you. This is Suwonru." I took a good look at my fiancée. The warm light fell on her shoulders, highlighting the sharp angles and clean lines of her features. Her delicate face and thin lips carried just the faintest trace of a smile, yet there was something strangely distant about her. "Hello, I'm feuding," I said softly. Suwonru's dark eyes gleamed as she gave me a once-over. Her sharp gaze landed directly on the cap on my head. Only after a long pause did she speak. "Suwonru, your fiancé." An hour later, a black sedan slowly pulled up in front of the Civil Affairs Bureau. Su's parents had been waiting there early. When they saw me, they couldn't hide the satisfaction on their faces. The son-in-law their daughter chose had a tall frame, clear, fresh skin, and looked far better in person than in photos. It was obvious I'd been raised well since childhood. The more they looked at me, the more pleased they were. Then, she generously took off the jade bracelet from her wrist. "Ting, this was given to me by Wanru's father. It originally belonged to Wanru's grandmother. Now I'm passing it on to you." I could tell the jade's quality with a single glance, and felt flattered, caught off guard. Just as I was about to decline, Suwonru's lips curved slightly, and she said softly, "This is a token of my mother's goodwill." Only then did I accept it with ease. Besides, her father spoke up, I've had the secretary transfer a portion of the Su family's shares under your name, Ting. His tone as he said this was as calm as if he were mentioning a simple transfer of 10,000 yuan. But I knew very well what those Su shares were worth. The Su family today was rising fast in the business world, a true leader in the industry. Those shares were far more valuable than any jade bracelet. Thank you, uncle and aunt. My eyes reddened slightly. I was genuinely touched. Receiving 2 grand gifts at our very first meeting showed how much the Su family valued me. Back then, Mother Liu had once given me a jade bracelet too, but I knew clearly that was something I earned by taking care of Liu Cixi during her disability for a full 5 years. Over the years, the Fu family had gradually declined, and Father Liu and Mother Liu always felt I was lacking somehow. They had even said privately that they hoped Liu Cixi would marry into the Gu family to secure her position in society. Let's go. Let's get the marriage certificate, Su Wanru reminded me. Alright, I followed Su Wanru into the Civil Affairs Bureau to get the license. A little over 10 minutes later, it was done. I looked down at the marriage certificate in my hand, momentarily lost in thought. Su Wanru stood beside me and said, I bought a villa in the city as our wedding home. I've just sent you the address and the entry code. Only your name is written on the property deed of the villa. Since you've just returned, stay with your parents for these 3 days. As for the wedding, we'll hold it in 2 weeks. We're still discussing the arrangements. Meanwhile, at the Liu Group, an assistant placed an invitation on Liu Cixi's desk. President Liu, we're still investigating Miss Zhang's case, but this is a wedding invitation from the Su family. Liu Cixi reached out and opened it for a glance. Groom Fu Ting, bride Su Wanru. She stared at the groom's name, and her heart began to panic. At that moment, I opened my phone, and sure enough, Su Wanru had sent over the villa's address and the door code. She was even more thoughtful than I had imagined. She had even considered letting me stay at my parents' place first. Looking at the graceful figure before me, for the first time, I felt that this impulsive marriage might actually be a good decision. Both families had lunch together, and the atmosphere was unexpectedly warm. We didn't part ways until the afternoon. By evening, father and mother had prepared a full table of dishes. After a long time apart, the 3 of us sat down to reunite as a family. Father was in high spirits and drank quite a lot. He started talking more than usual. We and the Su family really are fated. We didn't know them that well at first, but in recent years, they've helped us out both openly and behind the scenes. If the Su family hadn't stepped in, our Fu family might not have made it this far. I was a little surprised. The Su family had been helping us all along these years. 3 days passed quickly, and on the 4th afternoon, Su Wanru came to pick me up. I couldn't bear to say goodbye to my parents. They looked at Su Wanru, who stood not far away. She held my hand and whispered that she could tell that the child seemed to like me quite a bit. She urged me to try getting along with him. I lowered my gaze to Su Wanru standing beside the car. I couldn't help but feel he didn't really like me. The ride was quiet all the way. Neither of us said a word until the car stopped in front of the hospital. Tilting my head in confusion, I asked if he was sick. Su Wanru's gaze fell on the large hat I was wearing. She said I was injured, not ill, and told me we'd go home after she brought me here for a checkup. I was momentarily stunned. A gentle warmth rose in my heart, but curiosity followed close behind. I asked how she knew I had a head injury. I had hidden it pretty well these past 3 days. Even my parents hadn't noticed anything wrong with my head. Su Wanru tilted her head slightly. Her slender fingers tapped lightly on the steering wheel. Her deep eyes fell on my pale face. She guessed that it started the day he picked me up from the airport. She recalled how I had dressed up nicely From head to toe, my outfit was coordinated in soothing tones. It was obvious I was someone who cared about appearances, except for that oversized hat. It completely covered the top of my head, but didn't match the rest of my look at all. Later, when I got in the car, my head accidentally bumped against the car door. Logically speaking, a light knock shouldn't have hurt that much. But my reaction had been so intense that I hissed through my teeth, as if the pain was unbearable. Suwonru's suspicion grew, and she found it hard to believe that I might be hiding something serious from her. At the top floor of a private hospital, the doctor had been waiting for quite a while. He looked curiously at me, trailing behind Suwonru, and couldn't help but complain that she made him wait at the hospital since early morning and was only arriving now. He suddenly paused and asked if I was the one she always talked about. Before he could finish, Suwonru coldly cut him off, saying that I was her husband, Fu Ting, which made the doctor instantly shut up. He ran a full-body checkup on me, and under Suwonru's instruction, he changed the dressing on my head with the gentlest touch imaginable. An hour later, the results finally came back. After discussing it at length with the doctor, he called Suwonru out into the hallway. His expression was grave. He told her that her husband, Fu Ting, had not only suffered a head injury, but had also experienced temporary blindness. Though my right eye's vision was slowly recovering by inertia, he had observed something else troubling. The wound on my head didn't look like it was caused by a single impact, but rather by repeated and deliberate harm. He referenced the injury sustained at dawn, saying he had a friend inquire at the hospital over there, and pulled my recent medical records, where he discovered some irregularities. If I had been hospitalized due to an infection, there was no reason those particular medications should have been used early on. Based on his years of medical experience, he suspected I had secretly donated bone marrow without being informed. A surge of anger flared up from Suwonru's clenched lips. She picked up her phone and gave a firm order to investigate what exactly happened during that time at dawn and what I had gone through. The next morning, Suwonru received a call from her assistant. "President Su, we've compiled everything your husband went through at dawn. It's been organized into a document and sent to you." In the study, Suwonru read through the file. According to the bank records, the Su and Liu families had been enemies for generations. Old grudges between their elders ran deep, and as the youngest daughter, she had never taken part in those disputes. But now that I'd been hurt, things were different. Recently, the Liu family had their eyes on a shipment at the docks and tried to seize it by offering an exorbitant price. On the other end of the call, her assistant paused for a few seconds and asked carefully, "President Su, do you mean to go head-to-head with the Liu family now?" Zhang Yiter had been forced to move back to the Zhang family home. He sent message after message to Liu Cixi, begging pitifully for her forgiveness. But Liu Cixi never responded, not even once. Zhang Yiter refused to give up and went looking for Liu Cixi at the bar she often visited.